So good morning, everyone. We are going to study the Good Morrow by John Donne. As the title indicates, the Good Morrow is one of the early poems of John Donne, and undoubtedly, the Good Morrow is one of the earliest metaphysical love lyric by John Donne. As it is already known to us that metaphysical poem begins at the critical juncture. Metaphysical poem begins at the critical junctures of the lives of the lovers. So in the poem The Good Morrow, we assume a similar complicated situation. And what is the situation stated here? The lover speaker is surprised at himself. I wonder by my troth what thou and I did till we loved. Why are we not when till then? So the lover speaker suddenly, all of a sudden, the lover speaker realizes the complicated situation of their lives. The lover speaker is amazed at himself. The lover speaker is surprised at themselves. The lover speaker, he knows that he and his beloved, they are in a kind of a relationship. They were in a kind of a physical love. But what they have done so far in their relationship, what they have done so far in their engagement, what they have achieved so far in their physical engagement. But what is the important thing? The lover speaker is amazed and surprised at himself as well as on the part of the beloved. And then in the line number 3, the lover speaker suddenly realizes that probably but sucked on country pleasures childishly. So the lover speaker, he comes to the realization of a feeling probably in their relationship they were simply sucking the country pleasures. By the word suck, we generally mean taking the extreme sensory pleasures to get the highest level of the sensory entertainment. By country pleasure, we can mean that the materialistic pleasure, and childishly may indicate it is only sensory engagement, sensual engagement without the engagement of the mind, of the consciousness, and of the psyche. So the genuine metaphor that Donne might have been thinking so far in this line, that the lover and the beloved, they were almost like the newborn children, and as if they were sucking the breast of their mother, as if when the baby sucks the breast of their mother, their engagement is at the sensory level, their engagement is at the sensual level, without real working of mind or without the real working of knowledge or of consciousness. So the lover speaker, he comes to a kind of a realization that what we have done so far in our relationship, what we have achieved so far in our relationship, the lover speaker then suddenly comes to a realization of the fact that they have in their relationship so far had taken the highest level of the material pleasure, materialistic pleasure, almost in the manner of a child. Okay, so the central metaphor is the baby is sucking the breast of a mother. There is only the physical engagement, but the psychological engagement is almost absent there. In the similar fashion, the lover speaker, the lover and the beloved are in a kind of a relationship, are engaged at the bodily level, are engaged at the sensory level, but the real engagement in their psychic level, in their consciousness level, at their level of the soul was practically absent there. Then in the line number 4, the lover speaker remembers or snorted. Snorted means probably the lover and the beloved in their relationship, they were sleeping and they were making a kind of a snoring sound. How? We in the seven sleepers den So Donne immediately goes back to a very classical metaphor, and probably Christopher S. Nasser, he believes that Donne, while writing this poem Good Morrow, Donne might have been thinking of the Plato's cave allegory. Plato's cave allegory might have influenced Donne to write such an episode. Okay, so the lover and the beloved, they imagine that probably in their relationship they were sleeping so far and they were making snoring sound so far. Okay, without the real consciousness of the mind. Now let us go on the particular expression seven sleepers den. Okay, this seven sleepers den referred to the Christian mythology in which seven Christian youths from Ephesus hide in a cave during the persecution of the Diocletian in Anno Domini 250. And while they slept, the opening to the cavern was blocked, and leaving them entombed. Supposedly, they were discovered still living in Anno Domini 479. So, this is basically the mythological reference that Donne might have been thinking. So, what is the story? Seven Christian people, in the fear of death, they took shelter in a cave in the Anno Domini 250. But what happened there? Their passage was blocked, and as a result of that, they were still sleeping up to Anno Domini 479 years. Okay, it may be something, some 280 to 250 years after when the cave was reopened. These seven Christian youth, they were still living there. And this, just remember, the lover speaker, they compare their condition as if they were also sleeping like the seven sleepers of the Christian mythology. Meaning the lover and the beloved, they were engaged in their relationship. Their physical engagement is devoid of any kind of consciousness. So these seven Christian people, they were also sleeping, meaning they were physically sleeping, but their consciousness was working. Their consciousness was not working. So the lover and the beloved, they were in a kind of a physical relationship, they were in a kind of a physical engagement, but consciousness was not present there. The seven sleepers den, they were also sleeping, but consciousness was fundamentally lacking there. This is the point of similarity. And then line number 5 begins with, it was so. It was so means as if it is a kind of a stoic surrender, as it is a kind of a stoic surrender by the lover speaker. The lover speaker has come to the realization of the fact that in their relationship, they were only physically involved, they were only physiognomically involved, they were only taking the materialistic pleasure in their engagement. No consciousness was working, no knowledge was there, no psychic presence was there. As if their materialistic pleasure, the sucking of the materialistic pleasure was almost like the baby sucking the breast. The lover speaker does not forget to compare themselves with the seven sleepers den. The seven sleepers den, probably they were sleeping around some 250 years. They were sleeping, but consciousness was not working in them. In the very similar fashion, the lover and the beloved, they were in a kind of a relationship, but genuine consciousness was not working in them. It was so. It was so means as if the lover speaker has come to know that this is something what we have done so far. But this means with the word but there begins a new argument. What is the new argument? All pleasure fancies be, if ever any beauty did I see, which I desired to got, and it was but a dream of thee. Okay, the sentences are very, very long. Okay, as if the lover speaker has already known their fate, that in their relationship they have only sucked materialistic pleasures, they have not been able to achieve consciousness. Okay, the lover and the beloved, they have only sucked pleasures. They have only sucked pleasures but have not been able to achieve any kind of consciousness. This is the fate, this is the achievement the lover speaker has known so far. And that is why it is said, since it is so, since it was so. It was so means as if that is the lover speaker has known his fortune, his fate, his achievement. But the word but, with the word but, there begins a new argument. What is the new argument? But this, this must be noted. All pleasures fantasies be. The pleasures that the lover and the beloved they have enjoyed in their relationship, this is the pleasure. Generally, in every relationship, the lover and the beloved generally wish for such kind of pleasure. In a relationship, the lover and the beloved generally fancy such pleasure. But if ever any beauty did I see, the lover speaker does not forget to mention that in my life I have seen many such genuine beauty, many such paramount of beauty, but probably the beloved is the lone beauty, which is almost like a dream. The beloved is almost like a beauty, that is almost like a dream, that the lover speaker in his life has achieved such a dream. Look at this, look at the note, my love, you are a dream that come true. As if the lover speaker with his beauty, it was almost like a dream. And in the life of the lover, as if the lover has achieved that dream. Okay, the beloved is almost like a dream, and this dream has come true in the life of the lover, meaning as if the beloved was a kind of a untouchable, he was basically as if unattainable beauty, better to say. The beloved with her beauty as if she was unattainable, but the lover speaker does not forget to mention that though it was unattainable, it was a dream-like beauty that she possessed, but ultimately the genuine success, basically it's a kind of a record of the success and the failure. What is the failure? We only sucked pleasure, we could not achieve consciousness. Then what is the success? The success rate is, the success reporting is that my beloved is a beautiful woman, and this beauty is almost like a dream, meaning my beloved was a dream-like beauty, but in my real life I have achieved this dream-like beauty. That's why it's a dream come true story. Then line number 9 to 12. And now, good morrow to our waking souls, which watch not one another out of fear. So this is the, probably this two lines holds the key. Line number 9 and line number 10, this holds the key. Now, good morrow, undoubtedly, when you say good morrow, okay, we bid one another good morrow for the good beginning of a day. So good morrow is a greeting address, is a kind of a bidding address. We address someone for a good beginning. We greet someone for a good beginning. So the lover speaker, okay, he achieves that. This is the second success. The first success is the beloved was almost like a dream, and the lover has been able to achieve that dream in his life. And the second success reported, that is reported here, that is the, as if this morning, this particular morning, the morning noted here in this poem, okay, in this particular morning, the lover and the beloved, as if their soul has achieved a genuine consciousness. And with this genuine consciousness, as if the soul of the lover greets the soul of the beloved as a good morrow. So the word good morrow is very, very important. Good morrow, in fact, in his every poem, John Donne has taken the labor of defining love in its own way. In the poem Good Morrow, probably in the poem Good Morrow, John Donne has defined love as a kind of a beginning of a new kind of consciousness. Genuine love is the beginning of a new kind of consciousness. Look at this. This is a second success reported here. What is the first success I just mentioned here? The first success is the beloved is almost like a dream-like beauty. The lover has been able to win her. This is the first success. What is the second success? In this particular morning, as if the newly emotionally awakening soul or waking soul of the lover is greeting good morrow to the soul of the beloved. And this defines that genuine love has the power of overcoming fear. Genuine love has the power of overcoming failures. Okay. In the first two lines, the lover speaker was basically very surprised that what we have done in our relationship. We have only sucked the country's pleasure. So genuine love has the power of overcoming country's pleasure. Genuine love has the power of overcoming country's pleasure. Genuine love has the power of overcoming failures. Genuine love has the power of overcoming fear. So it is genuine love that can overcome fear. It is genuine love that can bring a new level of consciousness. And when the souls of the lover and the beloved are enkindled with a new knowledge, with a new consciousness, then the soul of the lover greets the soul of the beloved as a good morrow. So good morrow is not only a kind of a greeting. Good morrow is a good beginning. It's a good beginning of a new level. Is a good beginning of a new level of new consciousness. Look, for love, all love of other sides control and makes one little room and everywhere. Probably this kind of analogy we also got in the poem The Sun Rising. One little room everywhere. Okay, so one little room everywhere means once again you just go to that idea of metaphysical conceit. And what is the metaphysical conceit used here? The lover speaker imagines that this bedroom is a miniature version of the greater universe. Okay, as I mentioned you look at the face of Lord Krishna and you will see the universe itself. Okay, you look at the face of Lord Krishna and you will see the universe itself. So the universe is macrocosm and the face of Lord Krishna is the microcosm. So the lover speaker imagines that this bedroom is a microcosm of the greater universe. Okay, the lover speaker does not forget to establish the superiority of the world of love. The world of love is superior because though this is tiny, this is very small, but though it is small, but still it represents the greater universe. Though this is small, in its smallness there is the completeness. And this is also clear. One little room everywhere. This may also mean the world of love may be small, but it is self-sufficient. It does not depend on time. Time cannot affect it. Materialism cannot affect it. Fear cannot affect it. Failure cannot affect it. So the world of, when the lover speaker says that this one little room everywhere mean though the world of love is small, but it is self-sufficient. It is neither affected by failure, nor affected by fears, not even affected by the time. So this is where the lover speaker sings the songs of celebrates the superiority of the world of love. Then come to line number 13. Let sea discoverers to new world have gone. Let's map to other world on world have sown. Let us possess one world. Each hath one is one. This is where, as we know, that when you read the poem of John Donne, reading a poem by John Donne as if you are reading a contemporary encyclopedia. Let the sea discoverers to new world have gone. This is where you get the contemporary expedition, sea explorations, meaning done is remembering of those oceanography. Oceanography refers to the people, okay, contemporary travel, expedition, exploration, oceanographic map, etc. So what happens here? What happens in the world of geography? Broadly speaking, Dan is remembering the contemporary astronomy, that is geography. What do you mean by the contemporary astronomy and geography? Okay, a geographer, an explorer, okay, a geographer or an explorer, they may discover a new world, and within a new world they can discover another new world. Geographers, explorers, they can remain busy in exploring the greater physical universe. Within universe they can discover another universe. Okay, they can map one and as well as they can map the other. Okay, the geographers, they will explore, they will map, they will explore within exploration, meaning they will discover something, and within the discovery they will discover another thing. So what is the keywords I am looking for? The lover speaker knows that the geographers, they can explore one thing, and within the exploration they can explore another thing. They can map one thing, that is measure one thing, and they can measure the other thing. This is something, these are the things that a geographers can do, but they have their limitation, because a geographer needs to go out to such exploration. What is the central argument? Let us possess one world, each hath one is one, meaning the lover speaker is very clever in his argument, because he knows that for the exploration, for the measurement, they need not to go anywhere, because they know that the world of love is self-sufficient, and this world of love is self-sufficient and self-content, and for the exploration of this self-sufficient world of love, the lover and the beloved, they did not to go anywhere, they need not to discover anything, they need not to map anything, they need not to measure anything. What they can best do? The lover and the beloved, with their consciousness, with their knowledge, they can easily explore the world of love. World of love is self-sufficient world. World of love is self-content world, and that's why the lover and the beloved, they need not to physically go to discover or to map. What they can do? Look at the note. The lover desires only the single world they form when they unite. They know that the lover and the beloved, they know that when the lover and the beloved, they together physically unite, okay, their united body gives an image of a self-sufficient world. And in this self-sufficient world of love, the lover and the beloved, they need not physically go out to discover anything, to discover a new world, or to map a new world. So this is where, okay, the task of the geographers is different from the lovers. The lovers are self-sufficient, because the world of love is self-content. Okay, when the lovers body, they unite together, within their body they can explore, they can measure, they can discover everything. They need not to physically go out anywhere. Okay, then come to the line number 16. My face in thine eyes and thine in mine appears. This is the very commonest metaphysical conceit that Dan has always used. Okay, what is the metaphor? Okay, when the lover speaker is looking at the face of the beloved, when the lover speaker is looking at the face of the beloved, the eyes of the beloved serve as a mirror, and the eyes of the lover serve as a telescope. This is the one argument. What is the another argument? When the lover speaker, when the beloved is looking at the face of the lover, the face of the lover, the eyes of the lover function as a mirror, and the eyes of the beloved function as a telescope. Vice versa. When the lover is the mirror, the beloved is the telescope. When the beloved is the mirror, the lover is the telescope. Okay, this kind of analogy once again authenticates that when you read John Donne in Donne, okay, love is a consciousness. Love is the beginning of a genuine consciousness, and this genuine consciousness cannot be achieved without the reciprocation of the without the reciprocal participation. When the lover is the mirror, beloved is the telescope. When the beloved is the mirror, the lover is the telescope. This is called reciprocal participation. Without reciprocality, this genuine consciousness, what we call love, cannot be achieved. True plain hearts do in the faces rest. The lover speaker does not forget to mention that they often gaze at one another's face. Where can we find two better hemisphere without sharp north, without declining west? Okay, the lover speaker knows that. Just imagine the hemisphere metaphor. Once again, Donne has taken it from contemporary geography, that is astronomy. Okay, in basically geography, you discover the two different hemisphere, meaning the two different hemisphere. The presence of the two different hemisphere form a kind of a completeness. Okay, the lover speaker also knows that the face of the lover is one hemisphere and the face of the beloved is another hemisphere. Only the two faces form a complete hemisphere, and they are not going to look for a better hemisphere. So the lover and the beloved knows that oneness means incompleteness. Two-ness brings the perfection. So the face of the lover is one hemisphere, the face of the beloved is another hemisphere. Two hemispheres form a completeness. Two hemispheres form a completeness. The geographers, they may go physically out, they may discover one hemisphere, they may wait to discover another hemisphere. So the geographers need to go out physically to discover two different hemisphere. But what happens here in the self-sufficient world of love, the lover and the beloved, their faces, their soul together form a complete hemisphere, and that's why they are not going to look for something different. Okay, and what is next? Whatever dies was not mixed properly, was not mixed equally. Okay, so what is important here? Earlier in the line number 19, one hemisphere, another hemisphere. When Donne is referring here declining west, look at this: sharp north, declining west. When you think of north, you undoubtedly are thinking of the south as well. When you are thinking of the west, you are as well as thinking of the east. So Donne is always thinking in terms of binary. Okay, because when you think north alone, north as a hemisphere never forms the completeness, or west as a hemisphere never forms the completeness. Okay, east and west together form a completeness, north and south together form a completeness. Okay, so Donne is always thinking of the binary, of the two-ness, because two-ness forms the completeness. Okay, because world of love is a self-sufficient world. So come to the next section. Whatever dies was not mixed properly. This is a kind of a realization as well as one warning, alert, warning. What is the warning? The lover speaker says that if their love story does not survive, if their love story does not survive timelessly, eternally. Okay, then the lover speaker says that the soul of the beloved was not mingled properly with the soul of the lover. So once again, as south is mingled with the north, as west is mingled with the east, in a very similar way the lover speaker thinks that the soul of the beloved is one hemisphere and the soul of the beloved lover is another hemisphere. If these two souls are not mingled properly, then without proper mingling they will not survive long. Okay, just imagine what happens here. You have a popular Bengali recipe that is called kasundi. In what happens here, the mango alone will never survive, but if when mango is added with some preservative, mango will survive even for 2 or 3 years. Okay, so what happens here, mango survives when it is mixed with something. If mango and some preservative are properly mixed together, they survive long. So the lover speaker also said that our love as a self-sufficient world, if this does not survive long, then you need to conclude one thing: the beloved, soul of the beloved and the soul of the lover, the consciousness of the beloved, the consciousness of the lover were not mingled properly. Okay, if our two loves be one, or thou and I love so like that none so slacken, none can die. So the lover speaker this time at a very personal level addressing to the beloved that if your soul does not mingle with me, if your consciousness does not mingle with me, okay, then we will not survive. But if the opposite story happen, if your knowledge mingles with me, if your emotion mingles with me, if your soul mingles with me, if your consciousness mingles with me, then our love will achieve such a state that will never die, that will remain immortal. Okay, so in this entire poem, the Good Morrow, what is the lesson that you ultimately get? That genuine love is a kind of a beginning of a new consciousness, and this new consciousness can only be achieved when we will be able to shake off the country pleasures, when we will be able to give up fear, when we will be able to give up failures, when we will be able to reciprocate with one another, when we will be able to mingle with one another, because whatever dies was not mingled properly. If the soul and their consciousness are not reciprocated and mingled properly, they will not survive. So the entire poem is a kind of a realization as well as warning for the lovers.